Hello everyone. Today, I'd like to share a powerful story set during World War II, a time of immense hardship and resilience. This story, called The Silent Symphony, explores themes of family, love, raw emotion, and the profound loneliness that war inflicted, all through the eyes of a young girl in Warsaw. It's a tale about finding hope and strength in the most unexpected places. I hope you find Anna's journey as moving as I do. The Silent Symphony, the skeletal remains of what was once the grand house in Warsaw, clawed at the twilight sky like shattered teeth. 16-year-old Anna, her small frame swallowed by an oversized, threadbare coat, picked her way through the treacherous debris. Each careful step sent a brittle cascade of broken plaster and splintered wood, echoing into the vast, desolate silence. The wind, a constant, biting presence, carried the acrid scent of burnt wood and something else, something metallic and sharp, a stench that had become the omnipresent breath of war itself. Her loneliness was not merely a feeling. It was a physical companion, a silent, crushing weight pressed against her chest, heavy as the dust that coated everything. Every creak of shifting wreckage, every distant, solitary dog bark, only served to emphasize the profound, terrifying emptiness that surrounded her. She was a solitary figure in a city devoured by shadows, a living ghost amidst the ruins. Before the war, her life had been a vibrant tapestry woven with the threads of music. Her father, Jan, a renowned concert pianist with powerful, expressive hands, would fill their apartment with the rich, sonorous notes of Chopin. The melodies flowed from the gleaming grand piano in their living room, seeping into the very walls, becoming an inseparable part of their home's essence. Her mother, Sophia, a talented mezzo-soprano, would add her soaring voice, often joining father for impromptu duets that seemed to defy gravity, filling the space with their combined brilliance and their tangible love. Anna, with her own small, nimble fingers, had spent hours each day practicing, dreaming not just of playing, but of joining them on stage one day, of becoming a vital part of their beautiful, shared family symphony. She could still vividly recall the faint, sweet scent of her mother's perfume, the reassuring warmth of her father's arm around her shoulder, as he gently corrected her posture at the piano. These precious memories, once so vivid and alive, were now fragile, like old photographs fading inexorably in the harsh light of a forgotten sun. Then, with an earth-shattering roar, the tanks rolled in. The sound was not a melody, but a discordant, metallic thunder that shook the very foundations of the city, a brutal symphony of invasion. The music died first, choked into silence, replaced by the guttural shouts of soldiers and the incessant, bone-jarring boom of artillery. The vibrant colors of their lives bled quickly into shades, terrifying black. Her parents, fiercely proud and tragically unwilling to abandon their home, had stayed, clinging to a desperate, fragile hope that if they simply endured, if they clung to their identity, they could somehow weather the storm. Anna, however, was meant to be safe. A clandestine network of sympathetic neighbors, their faces etched with a grim, quiet determination, had hidden her for months after the first deportations began, moving her from attic to cellar, always miraculously. Just a single step ahead of the dreaded, inevitable knock. But even their immense kindness had its limits. One whispered warning, a hasty, tear-filled embrace in a darkened alley, and she was out on the brutal streets, another ghost amongst the ruins, carrying nothing but the tattered clothes on her back and the unshakable, corrosive grief in her heart. Her days became a desperate scramble for mere survival, scrounging for scraps of food from abandoned larders, sifting through bombed-out buildings for anything remotely salvageable, seeking meager shelter in damp, rat-infested cellars, always hiding from the ever-present, terrifying patrols. Her senses were perpetually heightened. The distant crunch of a boot, the glint of metal through a ruined archway, every moment a finely tuned assessment of imminent danger. The few people she encountered were shadows themselves, weary and broken, their eyes mirroring her own terror and gnawing hunger. They passed each other without a word, a silent acknowledgement of shared misery, a bond forged in unspoken suffering. She saw children even younger than herself, their faces smudged with soot, their eyes impossibly old with unspeakable knowledge, and a wave of raw emotion, pity, despair, a fierce, protective instinct would wash over her. But she knew, with a crushing certainty, that she couldn't help them. She could barely help herself. The lingering guilt of her own survival when so many others perished was a persistent, unwelcome thought, a thorn in her already aching soul. One freezing evening, as the first tentative flakes of snow began to drift lazily from the sky, Anna sought refuge, and a fleeting moment of warmth in the husk of a once grand theater. The roof was largely gone, a gaping maw open to the elements, but sections of the lower levels miraculously remained. As she explored, her worn boots echoing hollowly on the debris-strewn stage, she stumbled upon a hidden room beneath the collapsed proscenium arch. It was a dusty, forgotten dressing room, miraculously intact, shielded by a sturdy brick wall that had somehow withstood the brutal blasts. And there, in the very center of it, draped in a sheet of faded moth-eaten velvet, stood a grand piano. Anna stared at it, her heart thumping a frantic rhythm against her ribs. It was battered, stained with water damage, some keys yellowed with age, others chipped or missing their ivory caps. But it was a piano, a real piano. Her fingers, stiff and aching with cold and disuse, hovered over the keys, trembling with a mixture of awe and fear. The terror was immediate, sharp, and visceral. What if a patrol heard? What if the sound, however faint, drew unwanted attention? What if this fleeting moment of peace was shattered by sudden violence? But the urge was stronger, a desperate, undeniable yearning for the only comfort she had ever known, for the very essence of her soul that the war had tried so desperately to extinguish. She sank onto the rotting stool, her entire body trembling with a potent mixture of fear and surging anticipation. Her fingers, stiff and aching, pressed tentative notes. A discordant clang echoed loudly in the small, enclosed room. She flinched, biting back a cry of despair, but then tried again, softer, her touch almost reverent. A single, pure note resonated through the stillness. Then another, slowly, haltingly, like a forgotten melody reawakening from a long sleep. She began to play a fragment of a Chopin nocturne. It was rusty, imperfect, her technique ravaged by months of disuse, but it was unmistakably music. It was hers. The sound, so alien in the desolate, silenced city, felt both terrifying and exhilarating. The old melodies, the familiar finger movements, were a lifeline, pulling her back to a time of warmth, of laughter, of her family. For a few precious moments, the omnipresent shadow of war receded entirely. The gnawing hunger in her belly, the deep chill in her bones, the constant threat lurking outside, all of it faded into a hazy, unimportant background. Her profound loneliness lifted, replaced by the profound aching beauty of the music. A communion with her past, a whisper of hope for a future she had almost given up on. She played until her fingers ached, until the very last vestiges of twilight faded into absolute, comforting darkness, losing herself entirely in the solace of the sound. A few nights later, driven by an irresistible need that outweighed her fear, she returned to her hidden sanctuary. As her fingers found their rhythm again, coaxing a hesitant waltz from the old piano, she heard a faint, distant sound from the theater above. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, hesitant. She froze, her heart leaping into her throat, her hands hovering rigidly above the keys. A figure emerged from the shadows cast by the moonlit rubble. An older man, his face gaunt and deeply lined, his eyes hollowed by unimaginable experience, but with an unmistakable glint of recognition that mirrored her own. He wore the tattered remnants of what might have once been a musician's elegant concert coat, its velvet now frayed and stained beyond recognition. Anna nodded, terrified, unable to speak a single word. He held up a hand, a gesture of peace, of shared understanding, a silent promise of no harm. He then walked slowly to the piano, his movements deliberate, as if each step cost him immense effort. He extended a trembling hand towards the keys, then began to play, his fingers moving with a surprising, fragile grace. It was a different piece, a haunting Polish folk song that Anna recognized from her childhood, a lament full of both profound sorrow and a stubborn, enduring resilience. It was beautiful. They never spoke of the war, of their individual losses, of their fears for the brutal future that awaited them. Their only communication was through the music, a silent symphony of shared emotion that spoke volumes beyond any words. The old man, who she learned had been a former conductor of a city's grand orchestra. His name, tragically lost to her amidst the chaos, became her anchor, a surrogate family member in the desolate city. He taught her new pieces, shared whispered memories of grand concerts, and celebrated musicians that felt like impossible fairy tales. Now, he corrected her technique gently, his eyes lighting up with genuine joy when she mastered a difficult passage. For the very first time since the war began, Anna felt a powerful flicker of hope, a warmth that transcended the biting, pervasive cold. Their shared love for music built a bridge, fragile yet strong, over the abyss of their unspeakable suffering. One bitter dawn, the snow falling heavier than ever, blanketing the city in a thick, unforgiving shroud. The old man didn't arrive. Anna waited, huddled by the piano, her heart sinking with each passing hour, each tick of the silent clock. She played the Polish folk song he had taught her, louder than she usually dared, the poignant notes echoing mournfully in the empty theater, filling the painful void he had left behind. But there was no reply. The loneliness returned, sharper than ever, a fresh, agonizing wound tearing through the fragile peace she had found. She was truly alone again, the silence of the theater now deafening, oppressive without his presence. She feared the worst, a terrible, unspoken certainty, but still she played. She continued to play, driven by an indomitable spirit that she hadn't known she possessed, a deep well of resilience that surprised even herself. Her fingers moved automatically, recalling her father's patient lessons, the soaring strength of her mother's voice, the conductor's gentle, guiding presence. The music wasn't just for her now. It was for them, for her family, for the conductor, for the sacred memory of every beautiful sound that had been brutally silenced by the war. Each note was an act of defiance, a quiet, insistent shout into the encroaching darkness. She believed, deep in her heart, with an unwavering conviction, that as long as the music played, hope could not entirely die. Years later, when the war finally ended and the shattered city slowly began to breathe again, laboriously rebuilding itself from the ashes of destruction, Anna still played. Not in the hidden theater, which was eventually demolished to make way for new construction, but on a beautifully repaired piano in a small, crowded hall in the newly rebuilt section of Warsaw. Her hands, though still marked by the ordeal, moved with a newfound depth, a profound, poignant understanding of sorrow and resilience. Her music was a living testament to the love that had once filled her home, a powerful, resonant memorial to the family she had lost, and a quiet, persistent echo against the lingering loneliness that would forever be a part of her. Each note she played was a vibrant thread, weaving together the shattered pieces of her past into a new, hopeful melody, a silent symphony of survival and enduring beauty. She carried the silent symphony of her past within her, and through her music, she made it sing for a world that desperately needed to heal.